Now, this story that I'm about to tell you seems like it could be straight out of a Hollywood movie. And on January 23rd in the year 2000, there was a delivery driver that arrived at Bash's grocery store in Mesa, Arizona. And this delivery driver quickly observed something strange and mysterious. From a little bit of a distance away, they saw a 1997 Jaguar that was driven by a woman that pulled up to the store's dumpster and then tossed an awkward large object into it and then fled the scene. At this point, the delivery driver feels something just, it doesn't feel right. So he goes up to the dumpster just to investigate, make sure everything's okay. And that's when he makes a horrific discovery. So as he lifts the dumpster open and takes a peek down, he sees a human torso cut between the middle of the chest all the way down to the knees. And the delivery driver immediately notified the Mesa Police Department. So, with a little bit of detective work, the detectives on scene were able to trace the 1997 Jaguar back to Valerie Pape of Scottsdale, Arizona. Also, a second witness identified Valerie from a composite drawing, which was enough evidence to definitely tie her to the scene. Now, Valerie was 47 years old, and she was a French citizen that was born in the city of Rennes. She was married to Ira Pomerantz, and they both owned a high-end beauty salon downtown in Scottsdale, Arizona. So the police went to her Scottsdale home and upon entry immediately took her into the police station for intensive questioning. And at first she told the police that, she just found her husband lying dead in a pool of his own blood. And, when she came home, she panicked. She had no idea what to do. So she decided to go back to work at her beauty salon. Then, when she returned home from work, she dumped his body behind the Bosch's grocery store because, she felt a great amount of fear that she would be the one who was to be blamed for this. And Valerie, after this, did not respond to any questions regarding the body's dismemberment at all, which was highly suspicious. And as the detectives searched Valerie's home, they found a bit of evidence that actually contradicted her story. They found a receipt for a purchase of a saw that she recently purchased from Scottsdale hardware store. And they also found a bullet under the seat of her Jaguar. So they sent her into an interrogation room again, and they sat next to her and then presented her with this evidence. And Valerie immediately changed her story and confessed that she actually shot her estranged husband. And then she told detectives that her and her husband were involved in multiple domestic disputes, and they were actually in one of those disputes when she shot him. So after she admitted dumping his body into the dumpster 4 days later, she continued to deny any knowledge of how this body was dismembered. And seeing it as Valerie was such a petite woman, the detectives were almost positive that she had to have had an accomplice. And while this was going on, the media followed this case very closely, and they started to refer to this case as the torso murder case. So during her hearing at the Superior Court of Maricopa County, Valerie pled guilty to killing her husband, and her attorney claimed the killing was a result of the domestic dispute that they had on January 23rd, 2000. Plus, when investigating Valerie and Ira's history, the Attorney General discovered that there were actually past records of domestic disputes and restraining orders on file. This led to additional investigations into Valerie's background, and those investigations acquired a lot of intrigue because the beauty salon that Valerie owned also had an art gallery that would display the work of a bunch of local artists, and one of those artists was Rusty Bowers, who was a state senator from the city of Mesa. And when Bowers found out what happened, he said it was incomprehensible and that Valerie would never kill, let alone dismember her husband. And in his own words, he said, "She is a very gentle, decent person, and I'm simply astonished at this." Now, Bowers' administrative assistant's name was Merrill Bianchi, and she had been responsible for Valerie's meetings with her and Bianchi, and she reaffirmed Bowers' claim that Valerie's character was that of a gentle person. Plus, Bianchi said that Valerie shared with her how she was afraid of Ira. And then Bianchi told a story that Valerie shared with her about how one time when they were in a heated argument, Ira started throwing knives at her. So Bianchi allowed Valerie to stay with her. And in Bianchi's words, she said Valerie was the most kind, warmest, most gentle person you've ever met in your life, but she was also a little naive and too trusting. This is where the story gets even more intriguing, because in 1999, Bianchi's husband, Ron Bianchi, was found slain in the forest of Payson, Arizona. And get this, the killer was never found. And the authorities from Gila County, who were investigating the murder of Ron, followed the Valerie investigation with very keen interest. Also, a local newspaper called the Arizona Republic had an article that basically insinuated Ron Bianchi was murdered because he was investigating an affair between that of Senator John McCain and singer Connie Stevens. But because there was a lack of evidence to support this, it was eventually dismissed. But, this makes you wonder, was Senator John McCain involved possibly in nefarious activity because he found out that, Ron came to know about his affair with Connie Stevens? Now, at the time, this wasn't known. But in 2017, because of Senator John McCain's brain cancer, he was living out the last days of his life and was potentially trying to make the most of them. Which is why, underlined in an article from the Inquisitor, it said that Senator John McCain was making phone calls right under his wife's nose to a former lover, who was none other than Connie Stevens. The Radar online report claimed that John McCain had regrets that the relationship with Connie Stevens never materialized into anything beyond the alleged affair, with the source claiming that McCain wished he had married the actress, Connie. And just to be thorough, in 2008, there were sources close to McCain's campaign that claimed, at that time, the candidate was engaging in another affair, and this time with a lobbyist named Vicky Eisman. But now, as we switch back to Valerie, as a result of the findings, and the DA was convinced that Valerie did not act with premeditation, they charged Valerie with second-degree murder. And then on August 20th, Valerie agreed to a plea deal where the terms said she did not have to reveal who dismembered her husband's body if she agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder. Then on November 7th, the Arizona State Prison placed Valerie into custody with the U.S. Marshal Service, and then she was delivered to a federal transfer center in Oklahoma City in preparation for being turned over to the French police. And the director of the Arizona Department of Corrections, Dora Shiro, approved the move. The international transfer was, believe it or not, dropped when Iris' daughter expressed her concern that the French would simply release Valerie on parole and not make her serve a sentence at all. So in the end, Valerie was not extradited to France, and she was sentenced to 16 years without parole in an Arizona prison.